So first of all, I'd like to thank Rabbi Kligfeld and for all of you, and of course the Mark family, Mazal Tov, for having us here today. We're very happy to be here with you. And actually for me standing here, okay. For me standing here today, it's a little bit of a homecoming. Not in terms of geography or community, because, and I'm not from Los Angeles, but I used to be a rabbi. So standing here at the Bima giving a drash is something I haven't done in a very long time. Now, I wasn't a pulpit rabbi, I was a university rabbi. And at one point, my wife and I, along with our 5 daughters, who were very young at the time, moved to Brighton, England. And there I was the Jewish student chaplain for the south of England, for the universities of Brighton, Sussex, Bournemouth, and Southampton. And I loved the work, and I loved the teaching and the counseling, and the chance to support young people at such a formative point in their lives. But there was one recurring moment that began to trouble me. Though I was the rabbi for the student community, I was also involved in broader Jewish life, and the Jews of Brighton and Hove came to know me and my family, especially since for Brighton and Hove we were quite a large family. And inevitably I'd run into somebody at the grocery store at the Tesco, and they would see me and they would say, "Hello, Rabbi." And it was a very simple and respectful greeting, but it made me very uncomfortable every time. Because rabbi is a title that carries weight. It comes with expectations, with tradition, and with the assumption of belief. And in that context, Brighton and Hove, that meant Orthodox belief. It represented a world I had been part of and found real meaning and identity in, and a world I had believed in. Until I didn't. Questions had emerged for me that wouldn't settle, and tensions grew between what I taught and what I believed, and eventually it became impossible to ignore. The role I held and the life that I was leading no longer aligned with the truths inside of me, and by the time we left the UK and returned to Israel, I was no longer a practicing rabbi. There was no single dramatic moment, there was no one incident of rupture, just a slow, quiet becoming, and then the beginning of something new. That journey wasn't easy, but I was fortunate. Even though it wasn't simple for my wife, I could speak to her honestly. I had friends who understood me. I was raised in a modern family. I had an education, I had skills, and the tools to navigate the transition. In other words, I had support, I had a landing place, and perhaps more importantly, I still had a home at the end of the process. But so many others do not. And that awareness shapes not only how I understand my own story, but how I now read certain moments in the Torah, including the parsha we read today. Parshat Ki Teitzei opens with the word, Ki Teitzei lemilchama al oivecha. When you go out to battle against your enemies. And as we marked yesterday, 700 days since October 7th, that language for me is right now a little too heavy to bear, because in Israel today, we're still very much in the midst of war. It's not abstract or distant. It's lived daily by our sons, my daughter, our friends and family who are on the front lines. And it's carried in our hearts with the hostages still in captivity as we pray and long for their safe return home. But the Torah here is not only speaking about that kind of battle, because going out to battle is not just about the physical war of our loved ones are fighting right now. It's also a metaphor for something deeply human. The inner battles that each one of us face, the struggles of identity and belief and purpose, and that's why the Torah uses the language of when you go to battle, not if, because these battles are not hypothetical. They come to each of us at different times in different ways, sometimes in the day, and sometimes in the dark of night. And we all know these battles. The courage it takes to leave behind the safety of what is known, the turmoil of stepping into uncertainty, and the choice to act for the sake of conscience or integrity or maybe survival. These are not fought with weapons. They're fought in our hearts and in our families and in our communities. And that's why these words resonate so strongly with the stories of Yotzim b'Shelah, those who leave the ultra-Orthodox world in Israel not just in search of something different, but to find and sometimes to save themselves. And they do so at great risk and with profound consequences as you'll hear as you join us for the Kiddush and Learn after services, those of you who do. And it's an act of bravery that often goes unseen. Which is why later in Kitetse, the Torah gives us another brief but powerful commandment. Lo tuchal litalem. You shall not ignore. On the surface, in the text, the words are about returning lost objects. But commentators across generations saw this as a broader moral principle. When you encounter vulnerability or injustice, you are not permitted to look away. It's not enough to empathize, to wish things were different. Torah says you must act, you must care, you must respond. And that principle, lo tuchal litalem, has become for me one of the most important guideposts in understanding our work as an organization in Israel today. So On the Derech is the only national organization in Israel dedicated to providing comprehensive support to individuals transitioning out of ultra-Orthodox life. We meet people at perhaps the most vulnerable point in their lives. Some come to us with nothing and nowhere to go. Others have gotten out of survival mode on their own and need our help to thrive. Some are teenagers, most are in their 20s, but others are in their 30s and 40s, married, single, with children, without. In making the choice to leave, they are walking away from everything and everyone they have ever known and every support system that has ever held them. Some come ashamed, uncertain, or afraid. Others just need someone to tell them, you're not alone. You can succeed. So what do we provide? We provide support, comprehensive support during the first 3 to 5 years of transition, ensuring stability and security so that Yotzim can settle and breathe and begin imagining their future. And once they move beyond survival mode, we help them acquire the tools and skills they need to thrive. And perhaps most importantly, we'll offer something deeper, a home, a family, and a community of peers who truly understand them. Well, how do we do it? First of all, we provide a safe landing space. We have 5 community centers nationwide. We have 2 residential emergency shelters and 9 transitional housing units across Israel, where professional staff and over 1,500 volunteers help Yotzim find belonging, stability, and community. We also provide tools for independence, education and career guidance, scholarships, counseling, legal aid and support in accessing rights and resources that open real paths forward, and of course, specialized programming for members of our community with specific needs, like our single parents and our soldiers. We also provide a voice for change. We do advocacy and policy work to ensure the needs of Yotzim are addressed at the national level while reframing the public story. Leaving is not the rejection of tradition. It's the discovery of dignity and identity, hope, and hopefully agency. If you leave, you're not off the Derech. You're on the Derech because you're on your way. Today, we serve over 5,000 participants each year, but the need is accelerating at an unprecedented pace. Only a few years ago, about 400 new Yotzim joined us each year. By the end of 2025, we'll have 1,000 new members. And over the next decade, as many as 20,000 new members will seek our support. So the demand is clear, and the growth is undeniable, and the time to act is now, because this work is not only about helping individuals. It's also about Israel's future. Right now, there are 1.4 million ultra-Orthodox in Israel, 60% of whom are under the age of 20. In 2025, fully 1/4, 25% of Israeli first graders are in Haredi schools that do not teach core subjects like math, English, and social sciences. By 2060, demographic forecasts project that they may be 30% of the Israeli population, which means 40% of the Jewish population in Israel. 30% who do not participate in the economic, security, and social life of the country. And that's why every individual choice to step into broader society, every Yotzeh who chooses education, military service, or a career, is not just a personal story. It's a building block of a democratic, healthy, and sustainable Israeli civil society. And Yotzim are an essential part of shaping Israel's future. So why am I sharing this here now with you in Los Angeles? Because I believe that in this community, like many in the American Jewish world, you value pluralism. We believe that questions are sacred, that people can grow and they can change, and they can still belong. But not all parts of the Jewish world make that space. In Israel, leaving an insular religious community is still a very radical act, and it comes with real-world consequences. And I believe that we, all of us here today, have a role to play. Not in changing people's choices, but in making sure that those who choose with courage know that they are not alone. Each individual choice echoes far beyond one life, and it contributes to the resilience, inclusivity, and democratic future of Israeli society itself. Ki tetzei lemilchama. When you go out to battle, it should not be alone. Lo tuchal lehitalem. You shall not ignore. On the Derech exists to make sure that this battle, that this transition, is not carried out alone, that there is support, grounding, and security, and that no one should have to walk away without knowing that they have something to walk toward.